If you live in the Raleigh or Wake County area and you haven't been hiding under a rock lately, then you know homes are selling crazy fast, some within hours of being listed for sale. Many homes are not only selling fast, but they're selling for quite a bit over list price, sometimes well over list price. Quite often I see a lot of mistakes being made by both sellers and buyers that's costing both groups quite a bit of money. Today I'm going to share with you guys 5 must-do tips that sellers must do to make sure you're not leaving a ton of money on the table when selling. You're definitely going to want to stay to the end of the video because I have an extra bonus tip for you, which just following this one tip alone could potentially save you tens of thousands of dollars. Even if you don't have a home to sell and you're only in the market to buy, then this video is for you, because when sellers don't follow these tips, and I see these mistakes happen regularly, it oftentimes gives you, the home buyer, some much needed leverage that can help you not only get the home you want, but also save you a ton of money in the process. Okay guys, tip number 1, preparing your house for sale. Okay guys, the market is going crazy right now. Multiple offers are pretty much the norm in the triangle market. However, if you're a house seller, this doesn't mean that you can get away without properly preparing your house for sale. Sellers sometimes wrongly assume that it doesn't really matter if they do everything needed to properly prepare the home for sale. But the reality is that most times with minimal preparation and expense, you can get your house sold much faster and a higher sales price no matter what the market is. Okay, it's obvious that buyers don't want to tour a house that's cluttered and dirty and shows signs of wear and tear and be expected to make an offer for top dollar while competing with tons of other buyers. As a seller, you want the buyer's first impression to be fantastic. The goal with your showings is to get at least a couple of offers so you can get an auction-like effect started, bidding up the price as more offers come in. Get the house clean, get the exterior power washed if needed. I work with several companies pretty regularly that do a phenomenal house cleaning job. Depending on the size of your home, this can run between $300 and $400. I'd consider this money spent an investment because you're going to recoup this money several times over in the form of higher offers from buyers. Tip number 2, know your market data. You've all at one time or another heard the stories. The home down the street from yours selling for some huge amount way over list price, $50,000 to $100,000 sometimes. Many sellers then have the expectation of the same thing happening with their house. If you're selling, you obviously need to remember the market data is changing very quickly due to the short amount of time houses remain on the market before going under contract. When selling your house, you need to know why one house sells for more money than another when both are seemingly similar in design. However, in a rapidly changing market like the one we're currently experiencing, it's not always obvious just looking at the available market data to find out why one house sells for more money and quicker than another. Okay, here's an example of something that happens all the time. You have one house where a seller is taking an offer and he may have gotten less money, but maybe they negotiated an extended rent back period where they could remain in the home rent free for a couple of months, versus another similar home in the same neighborhood that received a much higher offer for the house, but no after closing rental period was needed. Here's something that's really important to remember. These type of offer details aren't always publicly disclosed. So you have to have an agent who isn't afraid to pick up the phone and ask another agent about the specific terms of these type of deals. The other agent doesn't have to answer, but if your agent doesn't ask, then you'll never know. Every home sale is different, even what's seemingly the identical house. Another thing that's important for a seller to know is the number of showings and the number of offers received on a comparable listing within the same neighborhood. This information is typically available to a realtor. However, it's not always easy to find. Therefore, a lot of agents won't bother to find out this information, or they simply don't know where to look. This is a pretty useful piece of information because when you're pricing your house, it gives you and your realtor important competitive intelligence that can then be used to price your house in an effort to get you the maximum amount of money for your listing. Did another house get tons of showings and fail to get an offer? Did another house get only a handful of showings but sell immediately? The bottom line is you need to know the reasons that caused the home to sell so you can use those to your advantage when you're pricing your house. Tip number 3, consider a pre-market inspection. A lot of prospective sellers, especially in a hot market like here in the Triangle area, might believe they won't need to make repairs or give concessions as a result of a buyer's inspection. However, sellers need to understand that any major looming issues like an old roof or an HVAC system or a moldy crawl space that might have termites could be deal killers. Repair issues like these might not only kill the deal that you've already won under contract for, but you might also lose leverage with potential future future buyers when they realize that your house sold but fell out of contract because of inspection issues. When future buyers find out that you had an offer on your home that went out of contract because of some issues that came up during the inspection, they're going to smell desperation, and you're going to usually get much lower offers after something like that happens. Just keep in mind, if you lose a deal due to repair issues, and those issues must be disclosed to all future potential buyers. So you want to make sure you have all those issues addressed as soon as possible. I'm a huge believer in having your home inspected by a licensed home inspector before putting it up for sale. Depending on the size of the house, these inspections can typically be performed for around $450 to $500. Yeah, I realize most sellers forego this step and end up fine. They sell their home without any issues, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen tons of money lost by sellers when an issue is discovered by a buyer's inspector after they received a really good offer. It's going to always mean more money in a seller's pocket to get an issue addressed before a buyer discovers it prior to closing. Depending on the loan type that's used by a buyer to purchase your house, certain issues like a roof that needs to be replaced or an active termite infestation are typically non-negotiable. These items must be taken care of in order for a buyer to be allowed by his lender to close on the purchase of your house. Your realtor really needs to make sure that they understand how different buyer loan types can affect what types of repairs you might be forced to make in order for the deal to close. Tip number 4, issues involving closing dates and post-closing occupancy requests. Another thing I'm seeing more and more occurring is home sellers that are requesting rent back periods from home buyers after the closing. This is where a house seller is allowed to remain in the home, typically for a short period of time, usually from a few days to sometimes up to a month or more after the buyer closes on the home. If you're a house seller, you need to understand that the time of year may have an impact on post-closing occupancy. If you're selling your house during late spring or early summer, many buyers will need to be in the home prior to school opening in the fall. With summer break being only around 60 days in many areas, including here in Wake County, this doesn't allow much time for rent back scenarios. So I'd recommend being out of the house as far in advance of closing as possible. Furthermore, buyers obtaining a loan may not be allowed to let a seller stay in their home for more than 60 days past closing by a buyer's lender. If you're a seller who agrees to rent back your house to a buyer for an extended period of time, typically more than a month, a lease may be needed to be implemented versus a post-occupancy closing agreement. Typically, an attorney is recommended in those situations so that both parties can be protected in case of a post-closing occupancy issue arising. Tip number 5, issues involving multiple offer situations. Right now in the Triangle market, as well as other markets across the U.S., multiple offers are pretty much the norm right now. Before you sell your house, you need to be aware of several strategies dealing with multiple offer situations. For example, I always recommend that sellers always advertise their house as coming soon for at least several weeks, up to a month before actually being ready to have buyers come into your house. Think of selling your house like an auction. Auctions are advertised far in advance of the actual auction date in order to get the largest number of bidders at your event. By advertising your house is coming soon with adequate timing, you're letting buyers know that your house isn't ready to be seen just yet, but soon. When done correctly, the goal is to have tons of showings on your house's opening weekend, getting you multiple offers, hopefully way above list price. Here's something really important to remember. As a seller, you also need to be aware that the highest offer in terms of price isn't necessarily always the best offer, and your realtor should dig down into the terms behind the offer. Is it a cash deal, or will the buyer need financing? How much is the buyer putting down relative to the amount being borrowed if they are obtaining a loan? What's the closing date? How much is the non-refundable due diligence fee they're offering? What are the time frames written into the contract for the loan application? What about financing, inspection time frames? Here's another really important issue. Make sure your realtor is familiar with the various mortgage lenders that are active in your area. If a buyer is using a mortgage lender to finance the purchase of your house, you need to make sure that this lender has a proven track record of getting loans closed and closed on time. Most lenders are great, but the lender plays a huge role in getting your house sold. When you're selling, you need a realtor who can vet the various lenders so you can feel secure knowing that the deal will close and close on time so you can get on with your move. If you're closing on a new home with a closing date that closely coincides with your old house closing, a delay can be a massive inconvenience and cost you a lot of money when you can't close and move into your new home. Another thing that's always been occurring in the real estate market that hasn't seemed to have proved much is the fact that some realtors will actually coach their buyer clients into doing whatever it takes to get the seller to take their offer, because the buyer has the option of using the inspection period to terminate the offer if the buyer changes their mind about buying the house. Other than having a good realtor who can expertly navigate an offer, your only real defense against these type of shenanigans is to get as much upfront due diligence money as possible. This way, if a buyer backs out, at least you get to keep this money and can then turn around and sell to another qualified buyer. Okay guys, here's my bonus tip. It involves selling your home to an instant offer cash buyer. Unless you've been living with your heads buried in the sand, I'm sure you've seen and you've heard the ads from realtors and companies who want to give you a guaranteed offer or instant cash offer for your house. Many times these offers can be a huge advantage for a home seller who needs to sell their house very quickly, along with knowing upfront how much money they'll end up with. To some, this can be the main reason for taking one of these type of offers. As a house seller, just keep in mind that as with most anything, this convenience comes with a price tag. One of the big things to keep in mind about these guaranteed or instant offers is that they are typically more suited for someone whose primary goal is to sell and be out of the house in the absolute quickest time possible, with the selling price being of secondary importance. The absolute most important thing to know about these type offers is that you are selling to one and only one bidder for your house. Yes, you can request an offer from more than one of these companies. However, by going this route, like one of the commercials are famous for saying, you truly are bypassing the market by taking one of these offers. Here's my question. With the Triangle area being one of the hottest markets for sellers right now, why on earth would you want to bypass the market when buyers are often offering sellers $50,000 to $100,000 over list price, and they can still close just as fast as many of these other companies can? Keep in mind that many realtors can now not only buy your existing home for top dollar just as quickly as a lot of these instant offer companies, but some can even get you into your next home before you even have to sell your existing home, allowing you the benefit of getting multiple offers on your existing house while you're living stress-free in your new home, without all the hassles typically associated with selling your house. For more information on these super convenient programs, check out my video on the Knock Home Swap program, where I can get you up to $20,000 up front to use for your home move. Just click on the link above. Hey guys, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these tips, or if you've had any recent experience with selling or buying a home and maybe you've used some of these tips. I'd really love to share your comments. If you need to either buy or sell a home in the Raleigh or Triangle area, please give me a call, and remember, get Mike and get moved.